I don't consider to be part of. So, okay, so we're going to learn about Beruriah. Beruriah is very interesting character. She held her own with the rabbis of her time, and these are big rabbis. The rabbis are mentioning Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Meir, the rabbis of the Talmud. She held her own with them. She was a scholar, and we're going to learn some of what she went through in her life. We're going to learn how she reacted to people. We're going to try to get to the depths of her personality. We're going to try to focus on we're going to focus on her ending also, which is very, there are different accounts of how her life ended. That's going to impact how her legacy, really. But her legacy is still strong. There's articles consistently being written about her ending, about her life. There's a school named after Beruriah, a high school in New Jersey. And so she was such a great scholar and a model. Women are following in her ways today. So when did she live? She lived in the 2nd century. She was a daughter of Rav Chanina ben Trajan. Okay, he was a martyr, one of the 10 martyrs. We're going to learn his story, actually, how he died is very sad at the hand of the Romans for learning Torah, like Rabbi Akiva. He was one of the 10. Rabbi Akiva is another one of the 10. She lived around in the Tanaim periods. This period here, 0 to 200. She was married to Rabbi Meir. Okay, so they were a power couple. Rabbi Meir was one of our big rabbis. Rabbi Meir was a student of Rabbi Akiva. Okay, so it's all interconnected. Rabbi Akiva's students, remember, they all died. I don't know if we really talked about this. A lot of his students died, and he gave smicha to 5 new students. One of them was Rabbi Meir. From them, he built all of Judaism up again. So it's pretty powerful. Anyway, so she had debates with him. She has discussions with him. She's lessons that she taught Rabbi Meir. It's very, very fascinating, and there's a lot to learn from her. So let's do that. Okay, I'm making this a little bit bigger because I saw last week the recording was a little small. Okay, so we're going to begin with just talking about her wisdom. Okay, this is page. Let me close this. Page 31. Okay, her wisdom. So these are Rabbi Yochanan said to Rabbi Simlai, Beruriah, the wife of Rabbi Meir, daughter of Rabbi Chanina ben Trajan, who learned 300 topics in one day from 300 different teachers, couldn't complete this study in 3 years. You think you can complete it in 3 months? It's talking about a certain area of knowledge, body of knowledge. And he was saying, the great Beruriah, she learned all this and she couldn't even finish it. And she couldn't complete this study in 3 years. And you think you're going to complete it in 3 months? The basic idea is that she was such a great scholar. Look what she did. She learned 300 topics from 300 different teachers. I don't know exactly what that meant. Like, would she read? I don't know. Maybe she learned information from one person, delivered in the name of many rabbis. I don't know. I doubt she was bouncing around to 300 different study centers. So I imagine, like, teachings, she was learning in the name of many different rabbis in one day. Okay, but obviously she was learning a lot. She absorbed a lot of information, right? She knew a lot, and she was smart enough to get to the depths to understand what these different rabbis, 300 of them, were saying. So it's pretty deep. And we were able to to hold a lot of information, 300 different topics. Okay, so her name appears in our text, like in our text alongside the rabbis. It's rare. There's no other case like this. There are women in the Talmud who are mentioned. We learned about one last week. Rachel, Rabbi Akiva's wife. She wasn't quoted in the halachic text though. She was helping Rabbi Akiva. She's supporting him, selling her braids. Remember, to help him support him and pushed him to become who he was. But this woman is in our text alongside the rabbi. Not many of them, but she appears. This is a Tosefta. It says it's a discussion around a ritually impure oven. So when does it become an impure oven become ritually pure? So in order to use an oven, if it's impure, you have to dismantle it, and then it becomes not an oven anymore. And then you could reassemble it, and then it can be purified again. And once you disassemble it, it becomes no longer in the category of an oven. Then you can undo its impurity. So that's how you make it pure. So he says, Rav Chalaf, the village of Chananya, said, I asked this to Rabbi Shimon ben Chananya, who asked the son of Rav Chanina ben Trajan. So this is her brother. Okay. He said after one displaces it from its original location, you take the oven, you put it in another place. It's no longer in the category of oven; it's another status, and then you can use it again. But she says you have to disassemble it. But his daughter said, so son and the daughter, they're bringing the two opinions in the halacha. His daughter said after it's been disassembled. When this was told to Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava, he said his daughter said better than his son. Okay, so they were children of Rav Hanani ben Trajon, who was an important Rav, and they're following her opinion instead of his. Another case where we have a colostra, not to be confused with cholesterol, and it was a peg apparently to use to lock a door, and so it was used to lock a door. The question is, does that make enough of a vessel to become impure? Only vessels can become impure. And so Rabbi Tarfon says, Rabbi Tarfon was one of our big rabbis. He's in the Haggadah, I believe, right? Rabbi Tarfon's in the Haggadah. So he says it's impure. The sages say it's pure. And Beruriah says, so we have Rabbi Tarfon, the sages, and Beruriah. Beruriah says, remove it from this entrance, hang it on the other one on Shabbat. Meaning it is a vessel, right? So it will be impure because it's a vessel because you can move it on Shabbat. You can move a vessel on Shabbat. It's not muktzah. So it is in the category of a vessel. And they said when her words were relayed to Rabbi Yeshua, he said, "This is well said by Beruriah. Yafa amra Beruriah." Okay, so maybe they're passing like Beruriah. He said at least she spoke very well here. Okay, so she's brought in the discourse among the rabbis. So we see here that she's definitely well versed. She knows a lot of material. And she knows enough to be offering her opinion on halachic matters. That's very impressive. So we're on page 32. Beruriah had different sides to her personality. We're going to try to get to the bottom of that. Okay. Those who are on Zoom who know about Beruriah, what do you know about her tough side of her personality? I saw Anne raise her hand and also Janice maybe. You can unmute yourselves if you want. Do you remember?
Yeah, what I remember is when she faced a tragedy when her son died and the way she dealt with that with Rabbi Meir.
Yeah.
That's what I remember.
We're going to talk about that. Yeah.
Yeah, but that was what I know about Beruriah, how she dealt with it and how she explained, dealt with Rabbi Meir with the news.
All right, so let's see. We're going to talk about that in a bit, but let's talk about her kind of her rough side. She had like a little bit of a tough or rough side to her, rough around the edges. Okay, so there's a kid, and the Gemara says, Rabbi Yossi Aglili also. You see his name appear, right? He's one of our big Tanaim. He was traveling when he encountered Beruriah. So one day he was traveling along the way. And he came across Beruriah. That's actually shoving along the way, and he came across Beruriah, and he said to her, which path should we take to load? Which path should we take to load? Right? It's asking for instructions. That's nothing wrong with that. Apparently, I would think. She replied, "You idiot Galilean." Right? He's from the Galilee. You're idiot Galilean. Did not the sages say, "Do not overextend conversation with women"? Right, there's a statement in our sages that say, don't overextend. Don't overextend conversation with women. She said, you're guilty of that. How is that? You should have said which to load. You said, I don't know what the Hebrew, how many letters it is in Hebrew. In English, it's what path should we take to load? You should have said which to load. You're overextending conversation. Right. So what do you think? Like, yeah, what? It's ridiculous, right? Why is she so tough on him, right? She's
That doesn't make sense.
She's so tough on him. I don't know. What do you think?
It's a rule that you're not supposed to overextend conversation.
Is this overextending? Adding a few extra words? Yeah.
One word. A few
extra.
But
Yeah.
the shorter the sentence, the more curt.
Good word.
Curt. It's nicer to have a longer sentence. It's friendlier.
Yeah. So it's preferable to be
Friendly.
That's how it's understood, at least.
In English, it says, what path should we?
Yes. Did you
And
just,
and we're not told that he's traveling with others, so we.
did
that
you see
means-
this before? Or did you just come up with this? So that's what the commentators say. That's pretty awesome. That's pretty awesome. Yeah. So some say that he's saying, she said it could get dangerous if you're talking about we. She might have understood him saying we, like what's our, should we go to Lod? Some say that. Another, we're going to see, like, we're going to pay attention to this. She's kind of tough with the rabbis. I wonder why. I don't know. Okay. So you're perplexed right now, right? Hold on to that. Hold on to that confusion.
What did you say he was?
And
Perplexed.
Oh, perplexed. I thought you used the Yiddish word.
what do you say? What do you think I said? Okay. Okay.
So Rabbi, let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Then,
Can you hear on Zoom, by the way?
Yes.
Okay.
um, back then, women were the lower class, right? So weren't men kind of like, didn't think they could talk to, they should talk to women?
So
They
why?
show any kind of respect to women?
So why would she be upset? She should welcome it.
Maybe she took it as,
Like flirtatious.
yeah.
That's how it's assumed.
It's over.
There's a deeper layer too here, but that's the overall assumption that we perhaps like she's talking a little bit more than she needed to. You're not liking this. Okay.
One word. Is he going, hey, baby, what's going?
So that's how she
No.
was perceiving it, I guess.
See, back then, that-
Maybe the vibe. Maybe
And like you said, that might have been the way you said, hey, kiddo.
Yeah.
we-
all right, let's hold on to that. It's okay that there's a little confusion around this. It's okay. We're gonna go a little deeper to her personality, so we're gonna try to get to the bottom of it. Okay. But everything we said here, they're all true. So we're gonna try to put it together. All right. So that's just saying, so that don't talk too much. So now there's another case. Beruriah encountered a student learning in whispers. So when I first came to yeshiva, I was very confused because I was used to being in a library where the librarian says to you, shh, shh, all the time. But in yeshiva, you're supposed to speak out loud. When you learn Torah, you're supposed to say it to yourself if you can. I'm not always super careful with that, but that's the idea, is to speak out. That's why you're supposed to study with a partner. The more you say things out loud, the better you can remember it. That's the assumption. So she once saw a student learning in whispers, and she sharply criticized him. Alternatively, she kicked him. It seems like she might have kicked him. Okay. She said to him, so just imagine a woman of that in that time period. I'm not defining the class. I'm saying a woman, how a woman was perceived in certain circles, in scholarly circles in that time period. If she wasn't necessarily, women weren't necessarily involved in those circles. She was not only in those circles, she was coming in. She was either criticizing or kicking a person. So what did he say to him? Is it not written in the scripture, arranged in all and preserved? If it is arranged in your 248 organs, it is preserved. If it's not, it's not preserved. So you're basically saying, speak out loud. Why? Because then you'll start to move your body a little bit more. The more you move your body, the more you speak, the more it will be preserved inside of you, the Torah. And you see a lot, like in yeshiva studies, it gets very loud, it gets very rowdy, people are moving their bodies. That type of engagement, involvement with the Torah, that creates a connection to what you're learning. And so that's what she's saying. This isn't a library. My rabbis used to say that. Like I had this one friend who like never got used to yeshiva. It's very loud in the study hall. If you've ever been in like a yeshiva, like it's very loud. And so he used to like come in with like these earbuds and like sit there. And like my rabbi was like, this isn't a library. And he never got used to it. He just went to go study in the library, actually. We had a library there too. What? All right. But he didn't kick him, so it's fine. Okay. So Rabbi Elazar had a disciple who learned in a low voice. After 3 years, he forgot his learning. Okay. So it's good to learn with a voice, a loud voice, with your body, 248 limbs. Here's another story which just talks about like using your mouth and learning, that it can help you live long. Okay. This is all based on these verses, but it's okay if we don't look into that. So basically, you're talking too much, you're talking too little. Okay? And she's critiquing rabbis each time. Okay?
Talking too loud, even today, is that considered part of building confidence, to be able to talk about the Talmud and.
The assumption is the more you speak it out, the better you retain it. I don't know if that's scientifically, I don't know what the science is on that today. The assumption many times, like if you study with a study, they always want us to study with a study partner in yeshiva. You speak it out loud, you remember what you said. It's sometimes harder to remember what you thought. Does that make sense?
Speak here, do is.
Writing, yeah. Writing. If you write something down, you remember it better as opposed to just like leaving it in your mind. So that's the assumption. Yeah. Okay. So here's another case where she's a little bit rough around the edges. A heretic, this is from a Masechet Brachot. A heretic, so somebody who's against the Torah, said to Beruriah, Scripture says in relation to the desolate city of Jerusalem, sing out, O barren one who has given birth. Right. So here's the verse. Who has not given birth, sorry. Because she has not given birth, she should rejoice. So this person only read the first part of the verse. The verse is a longer verse, as you see. Here's the full verse. But this heretic only read the first part. Because so why would you sing as a barren woman because you're not given birth? That's not a. Why would you, your scripture doesn't make any sense. You know, why would you sing if you haven't given birth? You'd be upset about that. And so Beruriah said to him, "You idiot! Look at the end of the verse where it is written, for the children of the desolate one, Jerusalem, are more numerous than the children of the inhabited one, the Edomite city," says Hashem. Meaning, we're crying over the fact that Jerusalem, the children are the desolate one, are more numerous than children of the inhabited one. So, for the children of the desolate one, Jerusalem are more numerous. So there's more children in the. Why is that? I don't know what that means exactly. Children of the desolate one. Kirabim b'nei Shemamai. But so we have many are in the desolate city. I guess that's the idea. We're sad over Jerusalem being desolate. And she goes, "What is meant by barren one?" So what's this? What does it mean the barren one has not given birth? She said to this heretic. Page 33. Rejoice, O community of Israel, which is like a barren woman who has not birthed children for Gehenna like you. So we're rejoicing. Why is Jerusalem rejoicing? Because it hasn't given birth to people like you who are going to hell, the Gehenna. Okay, so she's tough, right? She's got a very tough side to her. Okay, we saw 3 cases where she went up against men in her time. This was a heretic. The other two were rabbis. So basically, that's kind of like those are 3 conversations where you see like a tough side to her personality.
Sounds like some Israeli women.
Yeah,
They're tough.
they're tough.
Yeah.
So what do we make of her?
Any from Brooklyn?
What do you make of
My mother was from Brooklyn.
mother?
Yeah.
What do you make of her so far on Zoom? What do you think of Beruriah so far from everything we know? Anybody on
Doesn't
Zoom
look
want to
like
give it?
she doesn't sound very sympathetic, She comes down very hard and very quick.
She also doesn't sound so simple. I thought you were going to say simple, but she said sympathetic.
No,
But it's
I
also
said
simple.
sympathetic.
Yeah, correct. I'm adding on that. She also doesn't seem very simple. She's complex. She's has deep thought. She's critiquing. She's reflecting. All right. Any other thoughts on her personality? Yeah. Jen.
Where does her background, does her father teach her when she's a child? Where do we know she learned?
I would imagine she learned at least in her house because her brother was knowledgeable. She was knowledgeable. I imagine minimally she learned in that way from Rabbi Meir too. They were married. So I imagine at least from those 2 sources. Yeah.
Did she have to fight for a place in the conversation with the Rebbe?
But you're already hinting to what I would imagine would be a part of this ruggedness. Perhaps it was a very difficult time. Perhaps it was a difficult time for women to stand out or to have a place in the conversation. So perhaps she had to be extra tough or present herself that way so she would be listened to, perhaps. Yeah. So it could be from that place. Yeah. It could be that she was just incredible. Yeah.
What did they teach you about? Because I think a great scholar who happened to be female, unique in the time, would be someone of more note.
And here.
You can't hear? He's, say a little bit loud.
Sorry
Say a little bit. So he asked what,
about that.
how,
I asked what they taught about her in the yeshiva,
Mhm.
because I would have thought that someone of this stature and being female, particularly unique for the time, would have been,
so it depends which
more well
yeshiva.
known.
It depends which yeshiva. When I was in yeshivas in Israel that were less focused on like women's involvement in Torah, women's positions in leadership, she wasn't really talked about at all. When I went to yeshivas that were more focused on that inclusion and focusing on women's learning, so she was talked about more. So it depends on the space that you're learning. Yeah.
So she basically had to fight for whatever recognition.
So we're assuming minimally that is a source for some of her agitation, some of her the tough stance she's taking on things to make sure she's part of the conversation. We're assuming minimally that. Perhaps also maybe she was just really quick, very fast in her thinking. She understood everything at a deep level. And perhaps she was frustrated also that she was maybe a little bit quicker than some of the other individuals, and that was frustrating for her as well. Okay. So let's do a little bit more. Let's go deeper. There's another side to her. This is she has a sensitive side too. And this also shows her wisdom too. It's a good story. Tell me if anybody knows Tanakh. If they think of us like a parallel to this story. I have one in mind. Okay, so this is from Yakut Shimoni. Another interpretation of a valorous woman is hard to find. Eshet Chayil Miyimsa. So what's an Eshet Chayil, a valorous woman? Here it is. They told the following story by Rabbi Meir. When he was lecturing one Shabbat afternoon, his two sons died. All right, so those are her two sons as well. Okay. What did their mother do? Beruriah. She laid both of them on a bed and covered them with a sheet. This is the story that Anne was mentioning. After Shabbat, Rabbi Meir came from the Beit Midrash. Okay, it was after Shabbos. He came from the Beit Midrash. She didn't interrupt him in his learning. He was teaching in the Beit Midrash. He said to her, "Where are my sons?" She said to him, "They went to the Beit Midrash." He said to her, "I looked in the Beit Midrash, did not see them." She gave him the Havdalah cup. He said Havdalah and then asked again, "Where are my sons?" She said to him, "They went somewhere and they're coming now." She brought him food. After he ate, she said to him, "Rebbe, I have a question for you." She's talking about referring to him as Rebbe. Okay, perhaps it's important for him to talk to him in this way in this time to kind of prepare him. I'm assuming she's preparing him, she's giving him food, making sure he's calm before she reveals to him that his sons died. But here's another piece where she's preparing him for the news. Very smart method. I have a question. He said, "Ask away." So imagine the strength it takes also at this time for her to do this. Her sons are lying dead up in upstairs, and she's giving him Havdalah cup. She's asking him she's worrying about him and his welfare in this moment. She said, "Right before Shabbat, a man came and put something in my care, and now he wants to come to take it back. Should I return it or not?" He said to her, "My daughter, does one not have an obligation to return things to their owners?" She said to him, "With your assent, I would have not returned it." What did she do? She took him by the hand, gently brought him up to the room, drew him near the bed. So she didn't tell him yet. She brought him near the bed. She took the sheet off them, and he saw them both dead on the bed. He began to cry and say, "Son, son, Rebbe, my sons, B'derech Eretz, my Rebbes who lit my eyes up with the Torah." I mean, they were scholars as well. It doesn't say why they died here in the simple text. I didn't look into it. At that time, she said to him, "Rebbe, didn't you tell me that we have to return a collateral to its owner?" Because she prepared him for this. So Hashem gave and Hashem took. May the name of Hashem be blessed. Said Rabbi Chanina. In this way, she comforted him and restored his equilibrium. Recording this, it says a valorous woman is hard to find. So that story shows a lot about her. What does it show about her, actually? What do you think?
He's calculated.
Calculated?
Enormous strength.
Yeah.
And she came up with a way to present it that would maybe ease the blow a little bit.
Yeah. Any other? Yeah. also a lot of sensitivity, right? It's a little bit different than the sides that we saw of hers before. Extreme sensitivity, I would say. Ability to be sensitive to his needs in that moment of her own pain, and really going to where he was. Perhaps Rabbi Meir needed that kind of logical mode of dealing with things. She provided that for him, calling him his Rebbe, feeding him, making sure he's in a good place, not interrupting him. There's a lot of thought that went into that, a lot of sensitivity.
Well, what about her well-being?
Correct.
I mean, how is it that somebody whose son just died can just simply give her husband a Havdalah cup?
Correct.
That's just not feasible.
Yeah.
It's not. I mean, there's one thing to be strong. It's another
Yeah.
thing to be non-emotional about something
Okay.
as sensitive as
So
that.
it could be, so that's a really good point. We're going to see she went through other hardships as well. That could be a theory. Like perhaps she went through so much that also made her very rough.
What could be worse than that?
Yeah. I mean, there's other things that are pretty bad too. We're gonna see.
Maybe she was so logical also, and that's why she was a good match for her husband, that she also needed that logic and the bringing in the idea of Hashem and what's.
Can you hear
what's-
Lynn, by the way?
What's given and what's taken away.
Okay.
So she needed that as well.
Yeah. Maybe she needed him to understand that, and that helped her perhaps also, like maybe they're processing it together, maybe. I don't know. Okay, so yeah. Loud, please, those people.
Sorry, I wanna think, it was Shabbos.
It was Shabbos when they.
Don't mourn on Shabbos.
Correct. That's actually that's the correct point, actually.
That happened in my family.
That's the correct reading of this. Yeah, good point.
Excuse me, but how many of us here that happened would simply not mourn on Shabbos?
My great grandfather, when my father's mother died, he was 6 months old. They were from.
Can you hear Larry at home?
He died
Yes.
on a Friday
Laurie
afternoon.
can't hear you.
He was in the ground at 4. And my great grandfather did not permit himself to cry till after Havdalah. And he berated the whole family, and she was 21 years old. You know, it is.
I also know a story, it was Rav Grossman also, like they had some tragedy and like he waited till after Shabbat. Okay, let's hold on to this. Let's keep, so I think that's another very good theory. Perhaps she was so tough and because she went through so much, perhaps it left scars, pain, maybe she had a lot of pain. So let's keep that in mind, okay? So here's another case where she talks to Rabbi Meir, and it's very interesting. Rabbi Meir is one of our greatest sages. So here she educates him in a sensitive way as well. So some ruffians, some gangsters, some hoodlums in Rabbi Meir's neighborhood were bothering him very greatly. Okay, this is page 34. He responded by asking for mercy regarding them so that they would die. Sheesh, Rabbi Meir, that's harsh. Rabbi Meir was praying to God, have mercy on me so much that God remove them from my life. They're driving me nuts. They're causing too much havoc in this neighborhood. He prayed very hard. And she said to him, she goes, what are you thinking? Because the verse says, let chataim cease from the earth. Is it written sinners? It is written sins. So what does that mean? There's a verse that says like this. Itamu chataim in aretz. Sins, chataim, should be removed. Itamu, from the aretz. So she says, the verse talks about removing sins. It's not chotim, sinners. So you, Rabbi Meir, want God to remove the sinner. The verse doesn't say God should remove the sinner. It doesn't say chotim. It says chataim. God wants us to remove the evil, the sins, not the sinners. So pray that God should remove their negativity. It should become better people. I think God should get rid of them. God should make them do tshuva. Okay, so what? All right. let's leave that. That's a long topic.
Leave it right here.
I don't know if I imagine she didn't view these individuals. I view she viewed them as repairable, as that they these ruffians in this case they were. So and she goes, look at the end of the verse, etc. So she goes, rather it means ask for mercy regarding that they should repent. Instead of praying that they should be eliminated, pray they should repent. And they were, I imagine they were Jewish too. And thus the wicked are no more. He asked for mercy regarding them and they repented. Okay, so she critiqued, right, Mayor? You see here a sensitive side, right? A deeper side. On one hand, she was very tough with Rabbi Yossi Glili. She's very tough with that student who was speaking in whispers, learning in whispers. She's tough with the heretic. On the other hand, she was sensitive. She was sensitive in the first case, Rabbi Mayor, and also here towards the ruffians, towards the. I never used that word before, but I don't know. Whenever you read these translations to Tommy, you learn a lot of English. There's a lot of words like that. But these gangs, these hoodlums, these bullies. Anyway, so she prayed and he prayed, and they came back to the better path. So there's different sides to her personality. I want to talk a little bit just about where some of this might have come from, and then what I also want to focus on is this what's called Maaseh de Beruriah. If you Maaseh de Beruriah, this is on page 435. If you read any articles or any writings on Beruriah, you will have to deal with her ending. Okay, so we're going to deal with it. But before we get there, I want to talk about just two family tragedies that she endured. One was her father's passing, her father's murder. Okay, so they brought Rabbi Chanina, and again, we mentioned that perhaps some of her tough behavior emerges from her need to position herself in society in a certain way, or to be able to be part of the conversation. Perhaps it emerges also from all of her pain that she went through, her struggles. She went through a lot. Her sons died, as you saw. I don't know the chronology of this, though. I don't know which came first. I have to look into that a little bit more. But here's a case where her Rabbi Chanina ben Chajon died. So they brought Rabbi Chanina Chajon to be tried. They asked him, why have you been involved in Torah? He replied, as Hashem, this is the Romans, my God commanded immediately, so I did as Hashem commanded, as a verse he brought. Immediately they decreed that he should be burnt, that his wife should be killed, so that's Beruriah's mother. He should be burnt, his wife should be killed, and that his daughter, not Beruriah's sister, should be put in a brothel. So it said within a few days, Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma died, and all the great men of Rome went to his burial, made great lamentation for him. On their return, they found Rabbi Chanina ben Chajon sitting and occupying himself with the Torah, publicly gathering assemblies and keeping a scroll of law in his bosom. So he was not following the Romans' guidelines. He was breaking them. He was learning Torah. We saw Rabbi Kiva did that as well. They didn't stop learning. And straight away they took hold of him, wrapped him in the scroll of the law. They placed bundles of branches around him and set them on fire. I'm giving this like a trigger warning. This is a sad depiction and like a vivid imagery. So then they brought tufts of wool, which they had soaked in water, and placed them over his heart, so that he should not expire quickly. So it's just savage behavior. Yeah, with the Torah scroll, and not letting him die quickly, but rather, yeah. His daughter exclaimed, "Father, should I see you in this state?" Okay, so I'm not sure I think this is the other daughter. I'm not sure if this is Beruriah. Yeah. He replied, "If I were I alone being burnt, it would have been a thing hard to bear. But now that I'm burning together with the scroll of the law, he will have regard for the plight of the Torah, will also have regard for my plight." His disciples call out, "Rabbi, what do you see?" Like, what are you seeing? They thought like he's dying. He's dying al Kiddush Hashem, which is sanctifying God's name. Perhaps he's seeing angels or spirits or Hashem's glory, something. And he says, the parchments are being burnt, but the letters are soaring on high. It's an analogy. Our enemies can burn, it can damage our bodies. They can maybe, burn the Torah, but they can't get rid of our spirit, of our soul. The letters are still alive. The letters are still soaring high. And so it's an analogy perhaps for the Jewish people over the generations. Open your mouth, they said, so that the fire entry make it go quicker. His student said. So he says, let him who give my soul take it away, but no one should injure oneself. So I shouldn't hasten it. So the executioner was there. This is page 35. And said to Rabbi Hanina ben Trajan, Rabbi, if I raise the flame and take away the tufts of wool from over your heart, will you cause me to enter into the world to come? He says, yes. Then swear to me, he urged. He swore unto him. He thereupon raised the flame and removed the tufts of wool from his heart, and his soul departed speedily. The executioner then jumped and threw himself into the fire. And a divine voice exclaimed, Rabbi Hanina ben Trajan and the executioner have been assigned to the world to come. Rabbi heard it. He wept and said, one may acquire eternal life in a single hour, another after many hours. Okay. Many years, sorry. Another after many years. Okay. I have some questions on the story, like this executioner, why would he marry to get in the world to come? He was executing him. He made it go quicker based to help Rabbi Hanina ben Trajan, but still, I have some questions on that. But the idea, what I want to show you behind the story is that Beruriah's family two were killed, mother and father. Her sister was sent to a brothel, and so she suffered a lot. Her children died. Okay, so we have this woman who's a genius who also has a lot of personal struggles and tragedies, and she's in a time where she's way before her time, and so all those components, perhaps they all play into like her sensitivity because she knows what pain is. Perhaps they play into her behavior, her attitude, because she had so much pain and struggle in her life and in society. So all those, I think, play together into her personality and what we saw so far. One more is that her brother died too. So her brother, the brother that was quoted in that text earlier, fell into evil ways. He was seized and he was slain. His mutilated body was found after 3 days. They wrapped it in a net and placed it on a bier. Then they brought him into the city and acclaimed him by praising his father. And there's some statements what they said about it. I just want to show her brother died as well. Okay. All right. So that's a little bit of her history, a little bit of her personality. Now let's get to the final story. This is Maaseh de Beruriah. Okay. There's going to be this account, there's a statement in Rashi. I'm already letting you know. Rashi is a medieval commentator, like 11th century, I think, around. I have to get the exact dating for that. Let me just look it up. Let's see. Rashi lived in the 11th century, 1040 to 1105. One of our greatest commentators. Our greatest commentator on the Torah. You've probably heard Rashi in any class you've been in. And so in his commentary to this story, we have a story connected to her ending that has sparked so much controversy over the years. He portrays her ending in a very tragic way. And so we have to figure out what to do with it, how it fits in with her story, how it fits in with Rabbi Meir, and to see if it's legitimate or not. Try to figure out what to do with it. So in order to get there, we're going to talk about Maaseh de Beruriah. But just before we do that, I want to see anybody have anything that they're thinking about, or they want to share very quickly, just like on anything we've been going through that they've been thinking about that like they would like to address, questions or anything. Okay. All right. I think I built up the suspense around the story if you want to get into it. Okay, let's go.
Yes, Rabbi, I do have a question.
Okay.
It's Ellen.
Hi.
You talk about her, shall we say, reprimanding the student for whispering. Are we to believe that, or is there any evidence that she gave shiurim in a yeshiva of sorts, or she just overheard this fellow whispering?
I don't have any indication that she gave classes. I know minimally she's part of conversations because they were quoting her. So she obviously was in conversations with rabbis in different intervals. She was walking through the Beit Midrash, which is interesting, right?
Yeah.
I guess that took place in the Beit Midrash, right?
Mhm.
Where did that take place? One second. I don't know if it was the Beit Midrash. She was just learning in whispers. Maybe it was, I don't know where. But she had enough confidence to kick him or to like wake him up. So she was at least saw her standing as somewhat equal to the rabbi. So I don't know if she gave classes.
Did she get these opinions after all these tragedies, after the deaths of all?
So that's the question. I don't know when. We don't know. I don't know when they happened.
Yeah,
So
she might get there.
correct. So correct. I'm imagining that it played a part in a lot of. I can't imagine that it played a part. I don't know the chronology exactly. It's not written. So yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Let's go on to this final story. Maaseh de Beruriah. So here's the case. The story begins with Beruriah, wife of Rabbi Meir, was the daughter of Chanina ben Trajan. This is from the Gemara, also the same Gemara as before. The same Gemara as this one. Rabbi Chanina ben Trajan's death. It's right afterwards. The story appears. Okay, I separated them, but they go one after the other. Wife of Rabbi Meir was the daughter of Rabbi Chanina ben Trajan. She said to Rabbi Meir, "I'm ashamed that my sister is in a brothel." Remember that story? So she asked him. So she's asking him to help out. So he took a purse and went. He said, "If she has not been used for a sin, a miracle will happen for her. But if she has sins, no miracle will happen." He disguised himself as a knight, as a horseman, someone riding on a horse. He said to her, "Accept my advances." So he went in. He dressed himself up as somebody else. He went into the brothel, and with this money, he says, "Here's my pay. Accept my advances for your services." She replied, "I'm menstruating." Okay, he said, "I'm patient. I'll wait, however long I need to wait for you. I don't know. I guess I'll come back." And he's testing her. She said, "There are many prettier than I." He said to himself, "This indicates that she has not sinned." She says this to everyone who comes. So she's finding excuses to not be with him. And so he saw from there that she had not sinned, and that perhaps I don't know why that justified him in saving her. I don't know. I don't know why he positioned his saving her. He put her on the condition that she was not sinning. But the story is that he tested her. It turns out she was not involved in sin, and he made efforts to try to rescue her. So how did he do it? He said to her guard, "Give her to me." He didn't know that the guard didn't know it was Rabbi Meir. He just thought it was some guy off the street. He goes, "I'm afraid of the government." No, he knew it was Rabbi Meir. Sorry. He goes, No. He didn't know it was Rabbi Meir. He says, "Give her to me. I'm going to take her away." And so he's afraid of the government because she was put in the brothel by the government. So he goes, "Let me take her away." And he goes, "No, I can't do that. This is her judgment." So he goes, "Well, to the guard, take this money, this huge purse. Half it distribute as if other guards or the government has problems, bribe them. And the rest keep for yourself. The rest keep for yourself." The guard replied, "What do I do when the money is spent? Like, what if it gets all used up? I have nothing to give, and they're coming after me." And he said to them, "Say, 'God of Meir, answer me, and you will be saved." Okay, so let's see. The guard replied, "How do I know that this is so? You'll see right now. There were some man-eating dogs nearby. Rabbi Meir threw a cloud of earth at them, and they attacked the guard. He said, 'God of Meir, answer me.' The dogs let him alone, and the guard released him, and he gave her over to him." Okay, so in the end, he performed a miracle, saying, "God of Meir, answer me," and he's protected. So the guard agreed to go forward with the bribe. He was able to agreed to take the bribe. He was able to save Beruriah's sister from the brothel. That's the basic, most important part. Eventually, the government found out. They brought the guard out to be crucified. He exclaimed, "God of Meir, answer me." The Romans brought him down. They said, "What is this?" They couldn't kill him because he made that prayer. The guard then told them the story. It's like, "Oh, whoa! Like this magician, Rabbi Meir, is saving you. We got to go find him. He's the one who caused all this." So then, what do? They engraved Rabbi Meir's image on the entrance of Rome, saying, "Whoever sees this man, bring him in." So one day they spotted Rabbi Meir. Okay, it's like a movie. It's like, they're chasing him. Is the most most wanted sign in the entrance to town. They're chasing him now. So what is he going to do? One day they spotted him. They ran after him, and he ran from them. He himself went into a brothel. Some say he saw food cooked by Gentiles. He put one finger in and sucked the other. So he wanted to pretend like he wasn't Rabbi Meir. So how did he do that? No one would assume Rabbi Meir would go into a brothel. So they thought they saw him from the back of his head or something like that. They thought it was ours. They chased him. So when he went into a brothel, they assumed that's not Rabbi Meir. He wouldn't have done that. Or they saw him eating something unkosher. He was going by this shawarma stand. And so he put his finger in some of the dip, and then he sucked on his finger, but he sucked on the other one. They didn't notice that he didn't eat the unkosher food. He wanted to show he wasn't really Rabbi Meir. So some say Elijah appeared to him in the guise of a prostitute, and he hugged him. They said, heaven forbid, if this were Rabbi Meir, he would not behave so. He fled and came to Babylonia. Okay, so then he fled. Okay, and that's how he got away. Some say as a result of this episode, some say as a result of the episode involving Beruriah. So all this story is to bring, this whole story for us is to show that some say he escaped because of this story. Some say he escaped because of the case of Beruriah. Okay, so I'll already tell you up front before you read Rashi. So don't look at Rashi yet. Okay, still on your source sheet. I'll already tell you up front. Some say this Tom Henkin. You know that name? He was a PhD, a doctoral student. He wrote an article on Beruriah. Turns out he himself actually in 2015 he was killed in a terrorist attack with his wife. Very sad, very sad. Anyway, but we have this article from him. He was a brilliant man. He was a son of a rabbinic family. He ended up suing. I think for $360 million. The family was awarded in 2021. I saw that in the news. I don't know if they got all of it. They sued for that. They got
Rabbi?
large. What?
He's the son of my high school classmate, Chani Henkin. She was Ann Lazarus when I went to school with her.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So there's a lot to say on that. It actually happened at the hands of Hamas. It's very
What
sad.
did they sue for?
I think internationally, Iran for supporting them or supporting the Hamas terrorists in the attack, and they won. You can look it up. Eitan Henkin, yeah.
They beat Iran. Iran just.
I don't know.
Probably never got paid, but they won.
They won. I don't know. I don't know. You're saying they won, but I don't know. I don't know the details. I know they sued for that. I know they won. I don't know much
But
more than that.
They were killed. They were killed on the road. They were driving on
Yeah,
a road,
correct.
and they had their children in their car. The
Correct.
terrorists left the kids alone, but they killed the couple.
All right. So correct, but we're leaving that on the side for now. Although it's very sad, I want to focus on our story anyway. He gave us he wrote this article, and in his article he said what is the Gemara talking about here when it says he fled because of this case, he fled because of the case of Beruriah. He basically says his Gemara has the story here has two parts to it. The first part is the story of Beruriah. Beruriah's sister got kidnapped. It starts with Beruriah. His sister got kidnapped, and Beruriah said, "Go save my sister." And that's how Rabbi Meir got in trouble. That's the story of Beruriah, according to him. The Beruriah's story is that she told Rabbi Meir to save sister. He got in trouble with the law, and they had to flee because of that. Now, when it says because of this case, when it says not the case of Beruriah, that's talking about the one they just talked about, which is basically Rabbi Meir, not just the case that he had to escaping the law. He was ashamed of everything he just did. He was ashamed, and he wanted to get it to. He was ashamed of all the people understood that he might have understood that he did some sins, or he thought he did some sins. He felt ashamed of that, so he wanted to escape due to that as well. He splits the story into two. He says he escaped because of the case of the problems with the law with Beruriah and his sister, and they escaped because of the shame and the guilt that Rabbi Meir had for all the things that he did, or people would have known that he did in that place. So he wanted to leave and start a new life. That's how he explains those two cases. But that he's a modern commentator offering that interpretation for a reason, because the interpretation from Rashi on has been something else. Okay, so let's see Rashi's interpretation. and see what we make of it.
Well,
But
the
it-
other thing that's curious about this whole thing, her father and her brother and her sister were punished. Why wasn't she?
Very good question. I don't know. It's a good question. Yeah.
I thought maybe that was the end of the story.
No.
We're gonna talk about the
Yeah.
monstrous thing that Rabbi Meir did.
So here it is.
Let's do it.
Okay. According to this commentary in Rashi, again, Rashi's from the 11th century. Some say as a result of the episode involving Beruriah. Okay. What's the episode involving Beruriah? It's not this case. It's a whole other case. This case was the reason why he left Babylonia. All that story. Why? There's another case. Some say because it's the case of Beruriah. A whole other case. What was it? She once mocked the sage's statement: "Women's minds rule lightly over them." There's a statement like that. Like sometimes there's a statement like that in the sages, meaning like sometimes women can be more easily swayed by their emotions.
Usually the old kalot.
So that's a statement like that. So she mocked it. She felt uncomfortable with it, and she mocked it. Right? Meir, her husband, told her, "By your life, in the end, you will concede to the truth of their words." So Rabbi Meir said this to her. He ordered one of his students to tempt her to sin, and the student persisted for a long time until she agreed. When she found out, or when it was found out, when she found out the truth of what happened, or when it was found out this case to other people that she did this, one or the other, it's not clear. She strangled herself. Rabbi Meir fled out of shame.
He said, we had a shame that we set her up for this.
Perhaps it says out of shame. It seems that was the. So that is the tragic ending that appears in Rashi. Okay, so if I preface this ending with Eitam Henkin's explanation. That was an attempt to sidestep this Rashi, basically saying that the case of Beruriah was part of the story before, and this never happened. This Rashi, according to Eitam Henkin and other educators and commentators. What time is it now? Okay, we have a little more time. They're not alone in saying that. There is an earlier text from the 10th century that doesn't even have that story. It just says that Lakachat ishto v'chol ma sha'aya v'avar el Iraq. He took his wife and all he had, and they left for Iraq. So it doesn't even have that whole story that Rashi has. And so the Rashi story is very difficult on multiple fronts. Number one, it doesn't seem to align with Rabbi Meir's personality. Why would he frame his wife like that? Why would Rabbi Meir cause his wife to be involved in adultery just to prove to her that she was wrong? It doesn't fit well with his personality. And it also doesn't, it just seems so not in line with their character that we've seen so far. In addition, that text that appears in Rashi doesn't appear in any earlier text. Rashi's the first one that brought it. An earlier text doesn't even have it from the 11th century, from the 10th century. And so this leads some commentators like on the Talmud to say that perhaps it was a mistaken text, a story that was perhaps written in the margins and it found its way into Rashi, or perhaps it was a tale that was being told and Rashi accepted it, but it wasn't, and put it into his commentary. But it wasn't like a true story. It was a tale that was told. That's one explanation. I'll give you one more explanation, and then I'll offer you my explanation. So let me close this. Again, I'm just bringing us back. Let me summarize it all together, and then I'll bring the story, and I offer another interpretation, my interpretation. Story overall, Beruriah, she's different sides to her personality. She went through a lot of tragedy. She also was very tough. She was smart. She was intelligent. And we got finally to her story, her ending. According to earlier text, her ending ended. She perhaps went to Iraq with her husband to Babylon, and they fled due to being chased by the law, by the government, etc. In the 11th century, Rashi brings in this story. Rashi brings in this story, which is a tragic ending to Beruriah. Later texts continue the Rashi's narrative, and for many years, many assume that this was Beruriah's ending. Now, I'll share one thought on this, and I'll share what I do with all this. There is a feminist critique of this Rashi And they're basically saying, finally, a woman, Rachel Adler and other feminist writers say, finally, a woman made her way into the pinnacle, the top tier of rabbinic discourses. She's finally positioned herself, and she lived. She pushed back against them, and she spoke up. That led, maybe not Rashi, but the rabbis overall, to create this story to knock her down a peg. That this woman, it can't be that this woman did such great things. We need to kind of put her in her place. That's what some feminist writers write. I'm just offering you what's written
And to teach other women.
To teach other women.
Not to, like,
So that is a direction that's offered in like some academic circles. For me, I like to read it like this. I like to see something like this. Like maybe these two endings both have some truth to them. What I mean by that, one ending is that they lived happily ever after. They escaped, and she lived, and she went with Rabbi Meir, supporting him to Babylon. Right? He helped her. She went with him. She left everything, and they started a new life. Another story is that she had a tragic ending due to suffering and tragedy that she went through. She was tormented. She was shamed, and she went through a lot of struggles. Perhaps these two aspects, we don't know what the ending is. Perhaps these two aspects kind of hint to like these two sides of her personality. On one hand, she was very strong. On one hand, she was right on Rabbi Meir's side. She was his colleague. They left together. On the other hand, she had a lot of struggle. She had a lot of torment. She had a lot of struggle. She struggled in her community, in her society. She didn't feel understood. She felt like she had to speak out in order to be heard. And did she commit suicide? I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that these two aspects highlight two sides of her personality. What the true ending is, we don't know exactly, because Rashi did bring it. On the other hand, you could say that it was a mistaken text. But for me, I think that these two strands that we've been highlighting throughout the class. On one hand, she's a genius. She has great knowledge. She's sensitive. She's an educator. On the other hand, she had a lot of personal struggles. She had a lot of societal struggles in society. Both those aspects are true, and perhaps both of them play out like in the different narratives when it comes to her ending. And the truth is, her ending is still being written today. It's still being written. If you Google her, you'll see articles upon articles. Try to make sense of her ending. Try to make sense of her life. And she actually, in a lot of respects, she's never has ended. She's still being discussed. There's schools that use her name, and there's women who are learning and following her path. And so maybe we're still rewriting her ending right now. But basically, the idea is that she paved the way for a lot of women scholars today. She was a strong woman, and she pushed through a lot of difficult things in her life, a lot of struggles, a lot of shame, a lot of difficulty, and she fought, and I think she's a role model for a lot of women today. Here are just a few links. This is that Eitan Henkin article. Here's that article I mentioned by Rachel Adler, like the feminist critique. Here is another article which like sums up a few approaches. And here are just a collection of texts connected to Beruriah. And so basically that's the story of Beruriah. You got to learn about a new character, a lot to think about, and a lot to keep learning about when it comes to her. Thanks, everyone.